Some questions, Prabhu?
Dear Maharaj, may you please explain the role and importance of temple worshipping in Krishna consciousness? Temple procedure of worshipping.
Does that mean deity worship? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was what Guru Maharaj would call the jungles of Mayapur, taking Krishna Nam, right? Like the Goswami here, Samkhya Purvaka Namagani Natibi Kala Visani Krito, counting a particular number of names of Krishna every day in one place. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Mahaprabhu says, today I went to eat, the equivalent, paraphrasing, today I went to eat in the house of a millionaire. Says a lakpati. So it seems superficially saying, I went to eat in the house of a rich man. That would seem to be some sort of transgression of sannyas etiquette. And then he says, he clarifies, saying, I don't mean materially rich, said, but a lakpati, one who's taking a lakh of Krishna Nam every day. That means 100,000 names, 64 rounds. And he goes on to say, and in fact, I won't accept offerings from the hand of someone who does not chant a lakh of Krishna Nam. So, Sahajiyas like to use this to support their practicing position. And I brought this to the attention of Srila Guru Maharaj. He laughed and said, Ekalakanam doesn't only mean 100,000 names of Krishna, but it means a particular quality of Krishna Nam. And once that quality is there, then quantity is automatic. Now, Saraswati Thakur, he was content in his own life to take Krishna Nam, study the scriptures, engage in his own spiritual practices. And as time went on, we know that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he, although he, for his own preference, expressed that he would like to do bhajan in Kurukshetra, right? And his famous statement that Vrindavan is for shallow, hollow thinkers, a man of real bhajan will prefer Kurukshetra, and meaning that where the after 100 years separation, Krishna once again reuniting with Srimati Radharani and Braja Gopis, and the Guru Maharaj's distillation in the forms of an aphorism that service according to the intensity of its necessity draws remuneration. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, there service has reached its zenith point. Srimati Radharani is in the greatest necessity of assistance and service from her servitor group. He said, and if you can render service at that time in that plane, there's no chance of ever coming down to this plane again. Such high quality of seva and depth of penetration into that plane. But although that was his preference, Mahaprabhu gave him the inspiration to go to Krishna Nagar and subsequently to discover Mayapur, the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he had some preference in this way. The inspiration came to carry him to another place. And we know that it was in the midst of great hardship, sickness, but so much so that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, on his way to Krishna Nagar, knew that it was possible he might give up his body. He was that ill, but he thought, well, at least I'm going in the right direction, it's worth it. So, how seriously he took that inspiration, and then he moved in that plane, and subsequently Mayapur was revealed, the birthplace of Mahaprabhu, and deities were installed there, right, to commemorate that place with Jagannath Misra, Sachi, and Nimai, and other deities. And he made some arrangement that the leading men in society who had some religious sentiments, spiritual sentiments, that they would take some responsibility for the ongoing seva. But as time went on, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur was nearing the time of his departure from this world, that Saraswati Thakur, who was taking Krishna Nam, mainly Krishna Nam, studying the scriptures, and Bhaktivinoda wanted to transfer the seva of the deities to him. And being a recluse by nature and more or less doing nirjan bhajan at the time, so living in seclusion, he thought and the consideration of his own personal tendencies, which are not to mix with people so much, and he declined, thinking that it would upset the balance of his situation. And at that time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur teased him a little bit and said, "Oh, is worshiping the deity too much trouble for you? Like the Mayavadis, the Visheshvadis, Visheshvadis, you don't want to trouble yourself with the form of the Lord." So with this kind of gentle prodding, then Saraswati Thakur, at the behest of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he inherited the seva of those deities. And that will necessarily bring him in connection with others for their seva. Still, he had not yet begun the missionary activities of Gaudiya Math. And sometimes Srila Guru Maharaj said he envisioned, Saraswati Thakur envisioned a kirtan hall. We see in some places, and what is that place nearby called Haritala? They have places like that. Guru Maharaj, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Puri also, places that are established where there'll be a reading from the Bhagavatam, Harikatha, and everyone will gather there and hear something. So he's thinking as in his divine consciousness, imagination, what will be Sri Gaudiya Math. And at one point, some page from Chaitanya Charitamritam came floating to him, and he found that just part of a page from the book, and it said, what is that? Bhagavat Shravan, Sadhu Sangha, Nam Sankirtan, Murti, Pratishta, and what? Vrindavan Bas, I think, like that, these things. And he took it that this is what Mahaprabhu told to Sanatana Goswami Prabhu, and now it's come to me. And if you look, like Srila Gurudev made the logo, Chaitanya Saraswat Mat with Gayatri Murlista Kirtana Dhanam Radha Padam Dimai, and the flute of Krishna, and the water with the lotus, and a graphic representation of that concept of Krishna sun, Shisha lotus, Guru water. So Gaudiya Math had a logo. You can see on some of the old publications, and it will show this Bhagavat Shravan, Sadhu Sangha, Nam Sankirtan, Murti Pratishta, worship of the deity, and residence in the holy place. Or what Mahaprabhu told Sanatana Goswami, Lupta Tirtha, to rediscover the holy places. So, on the one hand, Guru Maharaj makes it very clear that the emphasis is kirtan, Nam Sankirtan, and that is the Yuga Dharma. And the Bhagavatam, it says, Kriteya Dhyatam Vishnum Dwarpare Paricharjayam Tretayam Yajato Makai Dwarpare Paricharjayam Kalotad Hari Kirtanat. Hari Kirtan is what is emphasized for the Kali Yuga. And Srila Guru Maharaj will stress this, that sometimes referring to kirtan as reproduction, reproducing what we've heard, in addition to counting Krishna Nam and congregational singing of Krishna Nam, to reproduce what we've heard from Sadhu Shastra Guru and Vaishnav, and the extension of that to others. And further extrapolation is Saraswati Thakur saying kirtan means a fight between Krishna conception and the Mayak misconception. So to convert the Mayak misconception into proper Krishna conception. But we see also this emphasis of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, distilled by Saraswati Thakur, most importantly, Sadhu Sangha, association with the Vaishnava. Otherwise, everything is suspect and has a tendency to what did I say? Deviate, go off track, become distracted. So with the Vaishnava in the center, but under the guidance of the Vaishnava, we see Saraswati Thakur, he established in all of his mats this conception of, that Mahaprabhu revealed to Ramananda alone. Rasaraj Mahabhav Duyakarup, Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and then Rasaraj Krishna, Mahabhav Srimati Radharani. So, although it's not the central point of emphasis, Saraswati Thakur and his followers approve this to focus the devotees, to focus the community. Like we see here, we have Giriraj Govardhan, again approved by Srila Saraswati Thakur, the Govardhan Shila. It centers our community of devotees and regulates their rising devotional performances, cooking, everything becomes nicely centered by having deity seva. Giriraj is very merciful in terms of the strictness of those things, but very focusing. But one thing that comes to mind, when Srila Guru Maharaj was visiting Sri Gaudiya Math around the time of Gaur Purnima, and he said Saraswati Thakur was upstairs on the first floor with his senior intimate disciples, and Guru Maharaj was having the darshan of the deity, and there was one devotee there taking care of the deity, and Guru Maharaj said, "So, Mahaprabhu is within the deity? Is that your idea, the idea?" And the man became incensed and said, "No, the deity is directly Mahaprabhu." Josada said, "Deha dehi vibedo yam neshware vidite kvachit. Sakshat Brajendanandana Hari is directly Krishna. It's Krishna himself appearing this way, not within, but he is Krishna. Mysteriously, miraculously, beautifully, he has appeared in this particular form. So it's Krishna himself, or in this case, Mahaprabhu himself." So Guru Maharaj said, in consideration that this is Mahaprabhu himself, I noticed your Guru Maharaj is upstairs and the senior devotees are with him, and with all due respect, one of the rank and file devotees is attending to the deity, who you say is Mahaprabhu himself. But that pujari is trained in Gaudiya Math. Remember, Saraswati Thakur said, "I started alone, and I've converted 500 men who say what I say." They got his conception. The man said, "Mahaprabhu will be appearing in the heart of our Guru Maharaj in a more substantial and accessible way." So they're all with him. Guru Janashire Puna Shovapai Shataguna. Guru Maharaj likes to quote this saying of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He's saying, "When I look at my Gurudev, I see Krishna above the head of my Gurudev 100 times more beautiful." Guru Jana Shire Puna Shobhapai Shataguna. 100 times more. So not to misunderstand, this is not in any way to slight the deity, but Guru Maharaj will point out what is our capacity to appreciate. We hear this directly Krishna. Do we believe that? How do we see? Well, I think the humorous thing when, for some devotees, the murti someone made of Srila Guru Maharaj, they felt was not the best representation of his divine form and expression. But Srila Gurudev, he said, if Jagannath is Krishna, then that's Guru Maharaj. So he means to say, when we look at Jagannath, Jagannath is extraordinary, but are we seeing Krishna as Mahaprabhu sees Krishna? When he sees Jagannath, he sees Shyama Sundar Krishna. When he looks deeply, it's very mysterious and important. Right? When Radharani and Brajagopis go to see Krishna in Kurukshetra, they want Shyama Sundar Krishna, not Dwaraka Krishna. So when Mahaprabhu goes before Jagannath, and when he goes deep, he sings Shyama Sundar Krishna. And when he comes out of his deep trance, for various reasons, we're told he'll say Jagannath, Subhadra, Balabhadra. So, although the deity is Krishna himself, our capacity to appreciate that is wanting. So, Guru Maharaj, the line of Saraswati Thakur, is placing the emphasis on Guru and Vaishnav. And we take it that by the grace of Guru and Vaishnav, we may have some appreciation for the deity. I remember Srila Gurudev going before Sri Guru Gauranga Gandharva Govinda Sundarju and Navadip. And he's looking for some time, and he turns and says, heavy Madhura Rasa. Right? So I'm thinking, that's his seeing, his capacity to see. After Gaur Purnima, the next morning he said, Sachi Misra had a baby boy, let's go see him. That's how he was thinking. The day on Jagannath Misra, the Anandotsav. Sachi Misra had a baby boy, let's go have darshan. So, for the higher devotees, it's not deity worship in the same sense for the lower section, right, who are under the guidance of Sadhu Shastra, Guru and Vaishnav, engaged in deity worship. Some of that is mentioned in the Hari Bhakti Vilas of Sanatana Goswami Prabhu. But Srila Guru Maharaj reminds us that the worship of Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and others is bhajan. It's not archan. It's direct service. That's why Sanatana Goswami can argue with Madan Mohan. Right? He's speaking to Madan Mohan. Right? And the Sakshi Gopal story, that devotee who's entreating Sakshi Gopal he's saying, only if you'll return to my village will they believe that the old Brahmin promised his daughter to me in marriage. So you have to come personally. And Sakshi Gopal says, but everyone knows deities can't walk. And he says, well, they can't talk either. But you're talking, so you can talk, you can walk. But Sakshi Gopal says, everyone knows deities don't walk. What is that? And someone said about the non-moving Brahma is Jagannath. Who is it, Brahmananda Bharati? And the moving Brahman is Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu Gauranga Sundara Nagara Bara Nittam Nijar Namabi. And how is he moving? He's taking his own name and becoming filled with sweetness, sweet ecstasy, and the ecstasy is translating itself into divine movement or dance. So, the worship of the deity is very important to us, actually. Yes. There are more questions?
This
Or more on that question?
question has second part, and this how we can keep internal mood when we are in the temple. How not to be superficial when we are in the temple.
And by this, I assume they mean like the Nat Mandir, the temple room before the deity. Is not what they mean. Well, different advice is given about how to be before the deity. You can consult the books and see, to be aware. Say if you're in the presence of a super exalted personality, then we'll be careful about how we sit, how we behave physically. So, some of it is just what Guru Maharaj would call spiritual common sense. So there are reminders. That's why when we enter the temple room, come before the deity, we bow, do dandavat and vibrate the name of the deity aloud. Should say it aloud. Our deity is Giriraj Govardhan, but wherever we enter some place, should be some acknowledgement of something said to praise the deity. Whatever we've heard will make us, whatever we hear on a daily basis and what we've heard in a cumulative effect will make us mindful in the presence of the deity. Anything else?
Maharaj, back to this question. All these 64 angas mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami, is it some value to learn it, maybe from Nectar of Devotion?
Yes, so, which is in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So, from time to time, we'll read through that, and that will make some impression upon us. But just to memorize something, that's not going to help us. Or to try to artificially follow everything that's mentioned. That's not the idea. But by reading that and hearing, some impression comes to the heart. so that when one is engaged in deity worship or before the deity, the heart's under the influence of having read such things. Sure.
Yesterday we read.
Try to speak a little more
Yesterday
loud.
we read Search for Sri Krishna, and the last part, I believe it was 12th chapter. And in this chapter, Srila Guru Maharaj describes how Krishna Nam is capturing, how it's sweet, and all those high status that one feels when he chants the holy name in the right way. But for me, it's not obvious why does he describing that, because are we going to get in this stage? And I don't see if someone does feel some that kind of appreciation to holy name, should we try to achieve this position, or why?
He is quoting the Sharanagati of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So, first we have to understand the reality of what we're connected with. We have a tendency to want to measure everything in terms of our present position. So what seems unthinkable, inconceivable, impossible to us at present should not color the reality of substantial devotees. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, what he's describing there, this is what we would call Shuddhanam, pure Krishna Nam, without any offenses. Right? So again, we should not think that this is some sort of objective experience, that I'll somehow free my, during the time of chanting, I will chant inoffensively and correctly and properly, and then I'll have this experience. That's not the idea. What is being expressed there is the reality of the pure heart in love with Krishna, lovingly, affectionately, ecstatically taking the name of Krishna. And it says there, Guru Maharaj puts the emphasis on that the heart, it's coming from the heart outward, not going in the other direction, that I am vibrating some sound and then that's going in my ear and going to touch my heart. But under the guidance of Guru and Vaishnava, we're taking Krishna Nam. And again, the cumulative effect of spiritual practices and service rendered, the heart may come under the influence of the name of Krishna, and then it's vibrating on the tongue or dancing on the tongue. So we hear the sequence, Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila, from divine sound. And what does that mean? Vaikuntha Nama Grahanam. What's descended from that plane into the heart is then expressing itself. And from the, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is describing there, from the sound, the name of Krishna, that divine vibration, divine sound descended, that some color appears and takes shape in the form of Krishna. And then Krishna with particular qualities. And that Krishna takes that devotee into his divine pastimes. So obviously, this is a super exalted stage. And if someone says, can we ever be like that? Yes, that's possible. That's why it's being indicated there. But what is our present position? We're talking about a super exalted stage, devotee, who, not having an objective experience, doing some repetitive, ritualistic performance, perfecting the repetition of a ritualistic performance to achieve some kind of effect. That would be mundane. Another one of Guru Maharaj's aphorisms is, the repetition of sensation is not experience. Right? So often we thought, we're going to chant Krishna Nam with our mind relatively free of mundane thoughts. We're trying to avoid the 10 offenses. And then that sound, we're going to listen to that, it's going to go in our heart, and we're going to have some ecstatic experience. Well, what are those 10 offenses? What are they comprised of? Things like, the proper appreciation of Vaishnavas. That's a very deep subject. Right? The proper understanding of all the devatas. Right? How we conceive Sri Guru. Right? The level of faith that's evolved to the point where when we hear something like that or other statements of the scripture, we don't take it to be exaggeration or hyperbole. Look at all those things very carefully. And we say Shuddha Nam is offenseless chanting. So then we can understand that's a tall order. What is our hope? Service to the lotus feet of Sri Guru. All things are possible. By the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, by service to the lotus feet of Sri Guru, all things are possible. The same Bhaktivinoda Thakur elsewhere, what does he say? Kabe habe bolo se dinamar. Oh, when will that day be mine? When this possibility becomes realized. Right? That's, in his song, we can say, a legitimate hankering. But Srila Guru Maharaj will remind us, what is that famous song? Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami. What is it? No, Bhukti Mukti. Yavat Sprihat. Pisachi Hridi Vartate. When the witches of bhukti and mukti, enjoyment and seeking liberation, right? When these witches are in the heart, said, how can we expect reasonably for the divine lady of bhakti to take her seat there? So, Hriday Bole, by the power of the heart outward, this Krishna Nam is being vibrated. But what will be the nature of that heart? Okay. Bhukti and Mukti, these witches will be sitting there in the heart while one is taking Krishna Nam, and will get some ecstatic result. That's not tenable. So, we hear of such things to know there is a plane where that's realistic and realizable. But our present position, also expressed by Mahaprabhu, right? Nam nama kari bahudha nija sarva shakti tatarpitak niyamatak smarane nakala etadrishi tava kripa bhagavan mamapi. Durdeva midrishami hajani nanaraga. Durdeva means misfortune. Sometimes Guru Maharaj renders it as bad luck. What is that misfortune? Na anurag, na anurag. No real feeling, attraction for these things. Why? Rupa Goswami says, Siptapta vidya, the tongue is covered by ignorance, jaundice-like ignorance. And that jaundice-like ignorance of the tongue is preventing the tongue from relishing the sweetness of Krishna Nam. I like Vishwanath's explanation of, who is that? Keshi, right? The horse demon. And Krishna put his fist and his arm down his throat. And Keshi perceived it like a hot iron, and he expired. But Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur says in the purport, his explanation, that he said, Keshi didn't realize, Krishna, he's sweetness personified. So when he stuck it, he should have been relishing all this sweetness. Right? The arm of Krishna is sweet, everything. When, like when Nityananda is looking at the beauty of Mahaprabhu, he is like tasting, his eyes are drinking, every one of his senses is fully relishing some aspect of the beauty of the divine form of the Lord. So here, Vishnu, he didn't realize how sweet Krishna is. Instead, he felt that arm. Instead of relishing the sweetness, it was like a hot iron rod being shoved down his throat. So Rupa Goswami says, this jaundiced tongue cannot relish the sweetness of the holy name of Krishna. Then we think, well, then we're lost. He says, no, Jiva Goswami says, still, the cure for that is to go on taking Krishna Nam. As the jaundiced patient in India, they're giving palm candy, rock candy. They keep taking that, then gradually some sweetness will come. So when we read that description, that is, an advertisement, you can say, for reality, the reality of Shuddha Nam. So thinking what our present position is, then we give our attention to what is before us. Even if a child is destined as an adult to occupy a certain position, still in the child stage, they need to concentrate on their child activities to evolve to that point. So when we read these statements, it's there, it's in the Bhagavatam in different places, about the effects of Krishna Nam, ecstatic outcome. That should give us some long-term encouragement. Krishna Nama Siddhu Dhamma Dhanya Dana Sagaram Prema Dhamma Deva Meva Nomi Gaura Sundaram. Krishna Nam is what? The Siddhu. Siddhu means nectar. Rendered there, I believe, is the abode of all nectarine substances. Mahaprabhu is taking Krishna Nam incessantly. Srimati Radharani and the Brajagopis, they're chanting Krishna Nam. Rupa Goswami writes, Tunde Tunda Vinim Vitanute Tundavali Labde Karna Kroda Kadambini Gatayate Karnar Budhevya Spriham. It's not hyperbole, go back to the offenses. To hear this statement and think it's exaggeration, then what will be the result? But if we can hear that statement of Rupa Goswami and believe that, then we have some hope. And again, he's saying that inconceivable world and the personalities there, for them, one tongue is insufficient to relish the sweetness of Krishna Nam. One will desire millions of tongues. For us to know that such a plane exists and such personalities traverse that plane, that should capture the mind, heart, and imagination. And it should be sufficient for us to realize, by remaining in the association and service of Guru and Vaishnava, I'm going in the right direction. As Vishwanath says in his commentary in the 10th canto, to qualify for an inheritance, the minimum requirement is to be alive. Right? Right? You have to be alive. That's very encouraging. So if this is the inheritance, the minimum requirement is to be alive, then stay in the association and service of Guru and Vaishnava. Then everything will come at the right time. Must. And such inconceivable things as are described there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when in his final days, as we've seen with the higher Vaishnavas, their consciousness, they're less and less outer directed and conscious of the external world, become more, they're just automatically ascending into the upper world and not crossing so much to this side. So much so in the case of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as epitomized in the Bhagavad Sloka, he was unaware if he was clothed or not. That's mentioned in the Bhagavatam as well. Like a drunkard is unaware if his clothes are on or off. The liberated soul is unaware whether his body is on or off. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur's sometimes just naked, and his attendant was one Krishnadas. So if some people came to visit him, Krishnadas would take some cloth and sit Bhaktivinoda in a chair, put some like chadar, dress him up a little bit. Bhaktivinoda Thakur would struggle to maintain some external consciousness, and the people asked him to say something about Krishna Nam. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, Krishna Nam, you want to hear about Krishna Nam? Krishna Nam, and just by repeating Krishna Nam, waves of ecstatic symptoms started moving on his divine form, and with him just saying, Krishna Nam, and he fell out of his chair and fainted on the floor in ecstasy. Just at the question, could you say something about Krishna Nam? So these are the effects of those who have Krishna Prem. Krishna Bhakti Nitya Siddha Sadhya Kabunoi Shravanadi Shuddha Chite Koroye Udoy, which is lying dormant, which is awakened by Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, all these things. Any other question?
The question about responsibility sense. What is the place of sense of responsibility in Krishna consciousness?
What is that?
Responsibility.
Responsibility.
Responsibility, yeah.
Yeah, as Guru Maharaj said, sometimes we're absent-mindedly taking Krishna Nam, thinking of so many other things, and mindlessly, absent-mindedly taking Krishna Nam. He said, it's better to accept some responsible seva that will concentrate the mind, and then one can take Krishna Nam. When Gurudev would hear the section of the Jaiva Dharma where the one Babaji, as he tells, he's gone internal, he's in the upper world and is Siddha Deha doing seva, and he turns to his assistant and speaks to him from that plane to this plane and is telling him, giving him some service in the internal world, but just this one particular thing. So, Srila Gurudev, he said, but don't we want, to do a lot of seva? Just this one activity, that's all he's given. And at that time, this old Vaishnava devotee who lived there named Nripin Prabhu in Calcutta, Damdambhar, he would come up every day and give Gurudev the newspaper. And then he'd give Dandavat and go back downstairs. So the time Maharaj said, I said, well, like Nripin Prabhu, and said he has so much service downstairs, but once a day he comes upstairs to give you the newspaper. And Gurudev said, oh, then it's okay. So, we could say, responsible service in this plane may lead to some other type of responsible service. So it's good to accept responsibility. That's wanted. We're praying for service. So if service comes to us, we can't deny that in the name of, and that it might interfere with our practices. But I don't know if you asked the question or not.
Maharaj, what does it mean, responsibility? Isn't we must do some important things?
No, even a trivial thing, but that you're accepting that you will see that that thing is done. It may be important to others. We take that all service is meaningful. Even some, as I told, that he is giving the paper every day to Gurudev. You say, oh, anyone can do that. Oh, that's his job. Every day to go upstairs, give that. So it has some significance in another way. So if we're being trained and, examined. So they're saying, Guru Maharaj calls the ever-watchful eye of Yoga Maya. She's aware of all the servitors and their serving potential to see who is qualified to be taken up into that plane of conscious, substantial service. So it means you're accepting that I will do or die, I will see that this is done. That's the responsibility. Like the soldiers. They're assigned different things. It's important that everyone does their part for the overall effort. When Srila Saraswati Thakur asked Guru Maharaj, he said, I would like that your party will take the responsibility for the maintenance of the London Mutt. That means we have to collect so much money every month to maintain the preaching in London. And Guru Maharaj, thinking about it, told him, he said, I don't know if we can do that. If we can collect that much every month and meet that responsibility. Saraswati Thakur said, we're not karmis. And we think in a literal way like that. Said rather, we're aspiring servitors. So we accept some seva with the wholehearted intention of fulfilling the obligation. But it may, in some instances, it may not be met, but still the servitors will draw some remuneration for sacrificing themselves in that service. When I mentioned Bhaktivinoda Thakur, although, and Guru Maharaj's prayer, Guru Dam, Grantha Dam, Gaura Dam, Nama Dam, Uda, Bhakti Dam, Buri Dam Bande, Bhaktivinoda Dam Sada, he gave everything. All of our scriptures, songs, revealed Mahaprabhu's birthplace, gave even Srila Saraswati Thakur, but as he was leaving the world was lamenting, I could not serve you, my Lord. So he took the responsibility for all the seva. The present day Krishna consciousness movement worldwide is the outcome of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's attempt, really. But he felt himself a failure. And they told Saraswati Thakur accepted the responsibility of the service of those deities in Mayapur at the behest of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Saraswati Thakur asked him, preach in the Western countries, in English, particularly America. He accepted that. It wasn't realized for so many years, but he accepted in principle that he must do that. He heard that first in 1922, again in 1933. He didn't land on the shore until 65, 66. But he took that seriously, that that's what's wanted from me. So there are some responsibility in a very tangible, immediate sense. The daily seva of the mat. And then there's some long-term seva descending from the Guru Varga to the aspiring servitor group in terms of preaching Krishna consciousness, extending it to others. Everyone has that responsibility. That what was freely gifted to us by the Guru Varga, to extend that to others according to our capacity. That's the attempt to repay the debt, the irreparable debt we have, or irrepayable, unrepayable debt we have to Sri Guru.